I can.
Thank you. All right, everyone, without further ado, let's begin. Good afternoon. My name is Michelle Clark. I am the manager of the Vocation, Education, Employment, and Reentry Unit here at the Office of Probation and Correctional Alternatives, Division of Criminal Justice Services, and welcome to the Lunch and Learn titled Role of a CRTF Co-Chair. This is a very important topic, one that we hope to give you more specific information on today and just solidify what you already know. And I also want to thank a few people right now for being on the call with us. First, I want to thank State Director Brigitte Fortune from New York State Docs for being here with us, as well as all of our Docs partners. And I also see a lot of other ATI partners on the call, as well as service providers and others on the call. So thank you for being here, reentry directors amongst different counties, et cetera. And I also want to introduce my staff from the Office of Probation and Correctional Alternatives who will be delivering the content of this co-chair webinar today. We have Melinda Vick, who is a Community Correction Representative 2 here in the VARE unit at OPCA, as well as Taylor Alfred, who is also a Community Correction Representative 2 here at the Office of Probation and Correctional Alternatives in the VARE unit. They are the program reps assigned to the 20 county reentry task forces situated around New York State. And I'm very pleased with the PowerPoint that they have developed for today to assist you all in doing your jobs even better than you're doing them now. So without further ado, because we only have an hour, I'm going to turn it over to Melinda and Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Good afternoon, everybody. Just a couple of housekeeping things. You should be able to mute and unmute yourselves, so just be cautious of that when you're clicking around the screen. And we have a chat open, so if you have any questions or any technical issues, feel free to throw them in the chat. We're going to go ahead and get started. So our learning objectives. So our goal is at the end of this training, attendees will be able to fully know the CRTF structure and have maybe a little bit better understanding of the co-chair roles. We hope that you'll understand the CRTF referral process. For many, it will be a refresher, but for some, it might be new. And a good understanding of that referral process might improve your ability to help the individuals that you serve. And lastly, we hope that you will be able to identify specific co-chair roles within the work plan objectives within the CRTF model. And I do apologize in advance. I'm struggling with a cold, so I may lose my voice at some point or sound terrible, but you're just going to have to bear with me on that. Okay, CRTF structure. So we have 2 co-chairs. There's a county co-chair, a DOCS co-chair, and then every CRTF is staffed with a CRTF coordinator. This model ensures effective coordination of services, and it supports for successful reentry. The CRTFs are staffed with a full-time CRTF coordinator, and those individuals, many of who are on this call today, are responsible for managing the day-to-day operation for the delivery of services to the population that they serve. The CRTFs are designed to increase the community's capacity to assist individuals releasing from state incarceration. That is the population that the CRTFs serve as of now. They're also responsible for maximizing the availability of services in your communities. And the CRTF members of this task force should support the primary goal of reducing recidivism, as well as increasing the safety of others in the community. We have our county co-chairs. The county co-chairs are officials or designees from agencies such as probation, the district attorney's office, OMH, or even DSS in some counties. And you're probably wondering why there's maybe an array of agencies that can represent the county co-chair role. And the answer is because they understand public safety. They have an investment into the community. They're invested in ensuring that the community is safe. These are agencies that also have access to resources information people, and they're able to use their position, their agencies, and their resources to bring people to the table, to really garner those strong county partnerships, to establish great working relationships to further boost and support the CRTF model. Now, we can't forget our docs co-chairs. Right now, the docs co-chair are our reentry managers. They are phenomenal, and they are a huge piece to this puzzle. They are able to provide assistance when it comes to the referral process. They're able to utilize their own resources, their own information, and their own ability to bring partners to the table. And we're really fortunate and appreciative of their role in this process. CRTF eligibility. So for those of you that may not know, the CRTF serves individuals releasing from state incarceration, as well as those that are currently on parole supervision. And they can work with individuals that are no longer on parole supervision or are maxing out from a state facility to no parole. So it's a lot of different caveats, a large population that's eligible. On the screen here are the specific eligibility criteria. We primarily serve Compass levels 1, 2, and 3s. We can serve Compass levels 4 as long as they fit into the population criteria listed here on the screen. I'm not going to go through every single one because you can see them here, but typically the CRTF serves any female releasing from state incarceration that has high service needs, individuals that have been incarcerated for a long time, 20 plus years, that might be a Compass level 4. Those individuals can be served by the task force. And uniquely, some may not recall that you can serve individuals that are releasing from the OCFS facility. So these are adolescents and juvenile offenders, individuals releasing on a parole violation, individuals that are maxing out you can work with. We've made some slight changes over the years, but this is generally the eligibility criteria, keeping in mind that it is individuals releasing from state incarceration on parole supervision or have been on parole supervision in the past. Pre-release referral model. So this individuals can be referred to the task force when they're still incarcerated in a state facility. And that process is initiated by the counselor in the facility. And they initiate that referral about 3 months before their release date, ideally, when they're having that community prep conversation. They initiate the referral, they gather some of the documentation, and they get the individual's consent. That referral is sent to the area office via a shared mailbox. The assigned parole officer now gets involved. Reentry staff may get involved depending on the area office. That referral process is further developed. The needs are further identified, and documentation is further gathered. Then all that information gets sent to the CRTF coordinator. They case conference the individual pre-release with a group of service providers in the community, along with docs. They're looking at the compass, they're looking at specific parole mandate that maybe the individual has, they're looking at other needs that have been identified by either docs, the facility even, and the coordinator based on what he or she is seeing. That case conference committee is key. So that is really where the service coordination begins, that, appointments are made, decisions are made, information is shared, and having key individuals there makes that case conference process strong. After that, the individual is released. They do an intake with the CRTF coordinator. Intakes are done either in person, over the phone, at docs, at the CRTF location. It varies across the state. And every CRTF coordinator has to develop a service coordination plan for that individual. Key takeaways from the pre-release referral process is that it is initiated by facility staff. And every individual that's eligible in releasing to one of the 20 counties that the CRTF is located in should be approached and had that conversation about the CRTF program and the services that they can provide. So it really is key that that process starts in the facility and it transitions to the area office. And as much planning that can be done as ahead of time is key. And that involves both community supervision, reentry, as well as the CRTF team as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Melinda, who's going to take us through the next few slides.
Good afternoon, everybody. So once again, thank you for sharing your lunch with us today. We greatly appreciate it. I am just going to build on what my coworker Taylor has reviewed, and now we're going to go over the post-release flowchart that we have developed. So when an incarcerated individual refuses while he or she is still incarcerated, they may not want to consent at that time for various different reasons. Some are just nervous to sign anything. Some really aren't sure. Some really just think they're going to be successful upon release and don't need any help. There's a lot of different reasons why they may not actually consent while they're still incarcerated. So what does that mean? It means that individuals aren't done there. They definitely have the ability to still work with the county reentry task forces. And generally speaking, most of our referrals, I'd have to say, come by the way of post-release, because when they get out, when they get to community supervision, they are then once again offered the opportunity to go to the county reentry task force and receive assistance as needed. Generally speaking, community supervision staff identify that an individual under supervision is in need of county reentry task force services, whether it be employment programming, assistance with obtaining DSS or identification, whether they need a cognitive behavioral intervention or employment readiness training. That is when, typically speaking, an area office staff will then refer to the local county reentry task force. Reentry managers and assistant reentry managers provide support as needed to ensure collaboration during the CRTF referral process. When it's determined that an individual can benefit from CRTF services, community supervision discusses the program with the participant. A consent is then signed and placed in the file, and then they are referred to the county reentry task force. It's important to note that an individual cannot be admitted to the CRTF program without a referral from community supervision. That's a must. We always have to have a consent on file. DOCS is the only source, as Taylor had mentioned, they are the only source of referral to this particular program. And of course, networking and word of mouth still happens, and people still generally speak to each other. So you may also have people walking into your office and requesting services. If that's the case, just make sure you're contacting your area office and receiving consent that they still would like this person to participate with the CRTF. After the consent has been obtained, community supervision staff complete the CRTF referral form and gather the compass reentry, the taper, which contains, the taper is what contains an individual's incarcerated history and programming that they have done, including education, CBIs, kind of behavioral interventions, whatever they did while incarcerated is included on that taper form. And then they get different screens that will give some background information on the individual to help the county reentry task force coordinator know who the person is that is coming into their office. That packet is then sent to the CRTF coordinator via email or dropped off or picked up. Each area office kind of has its own way of doing things. And then upon completion of documentation gathering and the referral packets received by the coordinator, they'll then schedule a case conference post-release, and an intake appointment for the individual is then made. CRTF coordinators and their staff then work directly with the participants to develop a service coordination plan. Next, we're going to talk about the referral process. So the DOCS co-chair and the county co-chair have two kind of distinctive roles. Both of them are described in both our guidance document and the memorandum of understanding, and we kind of gathered some of the information regarding this slide from both of those documents. In terms of DOCS, they're going to work with correctional facilities and the community supervision staff to identify eligible candidates for the referral to the CRTF, as we just explained. And they help to really garner a partnership between the participants and community supervision staff and the CRTF coordinator. They all work together to make sure that this process happens. The county co-chair oversees the CRTF progress and supports the CRTF coordinators by way of participating in conversations both with DOCS and when problems arise. They oversee progress and they also support the CRTF coordinator by way of participating in different meetings. Sometimes they host administration meetings, sometimes they host a bi-monthly meeting, communication between DOCS co-chair and the CRTF staff when problems arise in the referral process or numbers may not be high, trying to get people through the door, trying to continue to get buy-in. They also help when different county entities maybe aren't participating or that the coordinator needs help with different county agencies such as DSS, Sometimes it's with DMV, sometimes it's with mental health. So they are really pivotal in getting different counties involved in the process and involved with helping the individuals that are coming home. So coordinators should also be empowered to communicate and utilize co-chairs as well, right? So as a coordinator, we're constantly asking them to reach out to both your county co-chair and your docs co-chair if you're having a problem with the process, if you're having a problem with getting people to the table. You know, this is a very unique model in the sense that we work really closely with both the county and our state docs agency.
May I just jump in for a moment, Melinda? This is Michelle.
Absolutely.
Hello. So this is a very important slide, and thank you so much, Melinda, for covering it. I just wanted to also just emphasize, you know, in Doc's part here, we understand that the co-chairs are keenly aware of the processes, the pre-release process, the post-release process, the directives that are involved with that for staff within facilities as well as community supervision. So the good news is our reentry managers, who are currently the co-chairs for the CRTFs, have the relationship, as Melinda stated, with staff across the board and understand the directives, like I said, in the processes so well that when there are issues with referrals, it is most important that they be contacted, that you, the reentry managers that are on this call, that you be contacted. And for those of you who are on the call who are coordinators, you know, hear that. It is very important that you raise the concern to the docs co-chairs as well as the county co-chairs when you have operational needs that aren't being met, when the referral process isn't working the way that you think it should be, when you're seeing a drop in pre-release referrals or post-release referrals. So just please remember to utilize your co-chairs first and foremost. And then, you know, if you're not seeing success with that, certainly, you know, let us know. But we are very confident that your docs co-chairs and your county co-chairs together can work through the issues that you're having, if any, with the referral process. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it. The other point that I wanted to also make while we were on the referral process is, you know, it is also a good best practice that when you're sending your monthly snapshot reports, include both your co-chairs, add language to the email to explain differences, potentially, you know, starting different weekly snapshot reports if you see some struggling and you want to share that type of information. But when it's really key information to operational needs or potential problems, really include both of your co-chairs in those emails so that they're up to date on what's going on and you don't leave one out of the loop or the other. And us as well, as you would want us to be included too as your program rep. We are always here happy to help with any type of problems. So next we're going to talk about
sorry, I just wanted to let you know we had a hand raised. I believe AR.
Thank you, Taylor.
Did you have a question? You can either unmute yourselves or throw it in the chat, or we can wait till the end. I just didn't want to think we forgot about you. Maybe not. Maybe it was a mistake. Okay. Sorry, Melinda. Didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
I'll flip.
I'm glad you saw it because I did not see it. So
that's what I'm here for. All you.
All right. So case conference committee. We really wanted to break this up to just kind of show the differences because we often get these questions, you know, what is my role? What do you want me to be doing? How do you want me to be doing it? And we wanted to break it into both the docs co-chair and the county co-chair. So CRTFs are led by the county co-chair and the docs co-chair, as we know, and the CRTF co-chairs oversee the CRTF program and the coordinator to ensure task force functions are performed with the full support from docs and community-based service providers. The docs co-chair ensures docs is participating in the the case conference committee in a meaningful way. What does that mean? That means offering input on who should be referred to the cognitive behavioral intervention and employment readiness programming based on the review of the Compass reentry, providing up-to-date contact information as they have the most up-to-date information, whether it be in their CMS or FPMS computer systems, being able to offer any updated information as to an address or a phone number to the CRTF staff, coordinator, case managers, and reviewing any specific service referrals that should or could be made for the participant in advance of his or her release from state incarceration or when they post-release, when they're coming home and have different service needs. They're always looking at criminogenic needs as well as stabilization needs. That's a key to what the coordinators are looking for when they're doing a case conference committee, because that's really important. If a person is homeless, they can't really go into cognitive behavioral intervention until they have a place to lay their head, right? So we're always looking at what needs are there and what needs to be addressed. The county co-chair doesn't necessarily have to attend the case conference. Some county co-chairs do, but oftentimes they are not there. However, we do ask that they oversee the CRTF progress and support the CRTF coordinator in his or her efforts to coordinate case management activities. So for example, if they don't have somebody from DSS on the call and DSS is really refusing to come to the case conference, that can be really detrimental to somebody that's coming home. Oftentimes, many of our participants need DSS in order to be successful in terms of insurance or receiving funding to find a home. Multiple, we all know social services is key sometimes to people returning home and being successful. So there's oftentimes where we can ask the county co-chair to, hey, could you maybe speak to the Commissioner of Social Services and ask that we get a representative from the Temporary Assistance Unit to come to our case conferences on a biweekly schedule. And oftentimes it works. You know, the county co-chairs have a lot of pull within their counties, and they have a lot of different, you know, people that they work with and relationships, and they can be on really key to how a case conference committee is run. Other than that, there are multiple people that can come to a case conference committee, a lot of different service providers, home health aides come, different veterans services can come, different people from social services, county mental health, local mental health agencies, substance abuse, all sorts of, and depending on the county, can really depend on how many people will be at the table. You know, larger counties, oftentimes there's more service providers. Smaller counties may not have as many, but we want to have as many people there to be supportive of the participant that is coming home. If you're ever interested in looking at exactly who could come to the table, the guidance document really sets it out word for word about different agencies that could potentially be possible people to come to the case conference committee. Are there any questions?
There's one in the chat about consent forms from Gary Brown regarding those that have maxed out. I will, while we go to the next slide, I'll grab the language that we've used in the past to address this if you'd like, and I can flip that in the chat for everybody.
Thank you.
That works. Bi-monthly meetings. So the full County Reentry Task Force meets bi-monthly to review program progress, identify gaps in service delivery systems, and identify any new service providers that may have come to the county in between the two bi-monthly meetings. We're constantly scanning the environment and trying to look for different service providers. And the CRTFs are awesome in coming up and finding different resources. After 3 years of attending bi-monthly meetings, I can definitely attest to the fact that really great services are out there and you can find them if you look. The membership may vary by county or agency as the needs of the returning individuals and available system resources differ across jurisdictions, but the CRTF members should support the primary goal to reduce recidivism and increase public safety. So this is a requirement. Bi-monthly meetings are a requirement, and they're emphasized in both the guidance document and the memorandum of understanding. And the co-chairs are really there to drive. They are to be included in the bi-monthly meetings. They're really there to move conversation around different things such as identification issues, service gaps, reentry related concerns in the community, and any changes or updates to the agency structure or involvement in the task force. So oftentimes each co-chair is asked to speak at the bi-monthly meeting. We encourage that. We want to hear from you, especially if there's different things going on at a county level or even a state level that you may have heard of. For example, mental health sometimes has a lot of information about what's going on with both state mental health as well as OASIS, and can deliver different guidelines that are happening in terms of substance abuse services and mental health services. Both co-chairs are needed. They all work together with the coordinator to ensure that the bi-monthly meeting takes place, that participation is had, and that they also are providing an agenda ahead of time to their co-chairs. This is another best practice, that an agenda should really be provided about 5 to 7 days prior to the bi-monthly meeting so that it can be approved by both co-chairs and make any, additions or deletions as needed. I think it's really important that their input on the bi-monthly meeting is actually asked of them, and that way they have the ability to prepare for that meeting. Now, Taylor and I asked for the agenda in advance because we are responsible for ensuring that different state entities and different state leaders are also included in that invitation. Some actually attend, some don't, but it's still our responsibility to at least make sure they get the invitation. So that would be the agenda and any web link or physical location. We include all three. It is still part of our model right now that we keep a hybrid version of these particular meetings going, and that's really for two reasons. One, safety and health, as different parts of the state are still battling with COVID-19 as well as the flu and RSV. And also, it also just happens that most of the time when we're hybrid, a lot more people will attend. They find it easier to fit it into their schedules, so that has become part of this model as well. The bi-monthly meeting sample agenda, we've always included that. It's a welcome and introduction, the CRTF coordinator report, which should include a screenshot of your snapshot so that people can see that on the screen. It's really important that somebody like myself, I'm a very visual learner. I like to be able to see it in front of me so that I can kind of retain it. So we ask that you show that during your bi-monthly meeting. Talk about barriers and obstacles. Talk about those housing gaps. I recently had a bi-monthly meeting where that was discussed, and they actually formed a subcommittee to start to address some of the homeless issues. And instead of just talking about it, let's start doing something about it. So you never know what can come from a bi-monthly meeting when you actually talk about the issues that you might be struggling with. Another barrier that we hear, is opioid addiction and how people are trying to battle that, whether it be taking a Narcan class or having Narcan available at the CRTF coordinator's office. There's a lot of different things and ways that people are dealing with the different barriers and obstacles. As I mentioned before, your co-chair update, what information is important to share, definitely, any docs area office closures or construction, doc staff changes that may impact reentry referrals, staff promotions, state legislation and law changes, county-specific laws or changes in policy impacting reentry, anything to dealing with social services, housing, for some of you DMV. So those are all different topics that you are able to discuss and can talk about when it's your turn to talk. County co-chairs of specific agencies such as social services and mental health who want to hear about things that are happening that are impacting reentry. So you can also always have CRTF testimonials, any type of presentations. There's so many service providers that want to help those that are returning home from incarceration. So continuing to go out there and look for them, they're there. DCJS updates, we usually just give a quick, brief overview of what we're doing or what different presentations are coming up or webinars or learning abilities for our coordinators or the co-chairs, and then any community service provider updates as well as some closing remarks. That is pretty much the bi-monthly meeting.
One thing, just got to jump in for a minute. So the bi-monthly meetings, are a topic that we talk about a lot, Melinda and I and Taylor. We are very, very committed to attending. I'm trying to as much as I can. It's not always easy, but Melinda and Taylor literally, don't miss them, unless there's some extenuating circumstance. We are very, very hopeful that co-chairs are there all the time. If you cannot be there, please make sure you designate someone to be there in your place across the board, across all 20 CRTFs. We really need this, as well as the conversation that Melinda talked about with the agenda. It's very, very important that each member, each county co-chair, county and DOCS co-chair have a voice in the agenda. And that's why we want to give you enough time. That's why we want to have it out earlier than later so that you have the opportunity to, get your thoughts on paper for the agenda, because you're steering, the co-chairs steer, the task forces for the most part. And what I also wanted to mention real quickly is that we do like to hear about real life concerns and barriers and obstacles that you are the coordinators are dealing with. We want the co-chairs to hear the concerns you're having with your participants. There are always going to be barriers and obstacles. When I see an agenda that says no barriers, no obstacles, my head cocks to the left a little bit, because I know there are barriers and obstacles experienced by almost every returning citizen. So without getting into demographics and into personal client-specific information, please bring some of those barriers and challenges that you're facing or that your clients are facing to the bi-monthly meeting. You'll get you'll get an enormous amount of support coordinators from not only your co-chairs but from service providers, you know, on these on the bi-monthly meetings. So I just wanted to say that real quick.
Thanks, Michelle. And I do see Mr. Tate's question here. What, if any, are the parameters for the presentations offered at bi-monthly meetings? So I'm not going to say that there are strict parameters. We definitely have the agenda guidance, you know, that we want you to somewhat stick to. In terms of presentations, though, I think you would want to tailor it to the formerly incarcerated individuals that you're servicing. So, you know, things that are going to pertain to them. You know, if there's barriers with identification. Recently, I had a bi-monthly meeting where the commissioner of DMV did a presentation. It was very interesting. If you're seeing people struggling with maybe obtaining employment, you know, we can always do presentations on Ready, Set, Work or Workforce Development Specialists and what Ready, Set, Work is. We also have presentations that we can do for interactive journaling. We can always recommend different presentations that we have seen across the board. You know, certain people like ConConnect or Credit Solutions, that these are different services that are being asked to deliver. So we are a resource. Taylor and I are definitely a resource, and Michelle. And also on this call is Frank Cangiano. He is also our coworker, and he is also a great resource because he is our Workforce Development Specialist Program Manager. So we have a plethora of services at our fingertips and different presentations that we can offer to help you if you're struggling to find something. But in terms of parameters, I would stick to definitely more of a reentry topic or presentation that's going to help those that you work with. And now I'm going to turn this back over to my manager, Michelle Clark.
Okay, thank you, Melinda. Very good. I hope everyone got a lot out of that. I think it was very helpful. Again, this is a lunch and learn, so it's brief, it's to the point. And now we are going to talk to some of our voices from the field. I asked some people from the field to please participate today. And the first one we're going to be speaking with and hearing from is Mr. Thomas Angel, the Dutchess County Public Defender. Thank you, Tom, for being here.
Well, thank you all for attending this and for giving me this opportunity to share. I've been the county co-chair since reentry got started in Dutchess County, and I was trying to look back how long that is. I know it's more than a decade, but I've been involved since the inception. I can also tell you that I've been to almost every single county reentry task force meeting since the inception. I might have missed one or two when I was on vacation, but I'm very much a part of the process. In Dutchess County, the Reentry Task Force is part of our Criminal Justice Council. It's a subcommittee of our Criminal Justice Council. We have a very active Criminal Justice Council in Dutchess County, and it's what our work there is an integral part of that work. And we meet on a monthly basis as the Criminal Justice Council, and we're always giving a report to the Criminal Justice Council regarding what's happening in the reentry field, and when we have problems that we've identified in our task force that need to be brought to the broader county, it's done through that. The other thing I can tell you about Dutchess County is that we've been very focused on evidence-based practices in all of our alternatives to incarceration programs. The cornerstone of our evidence-based practices is the MRT program, the Moral Recognition Therapy program, which is the Cognitive Behavioral Treatment program. And that's something that's supported by DCJS as one of the potential evidence-based programs that you can use. And we've stressed the importance of using that in the context of our reentry task force and the reentry work that we do in Dutchess County. The last thing I would mention is that it's really been, our task force meetings have a lot of participation from the community. I think normally at a meeting we have 30 people attending, probably half and half at this point online versus in person. But we're constantly trying to engage people to participate, and we have every 2 months we have a very interesting presentation from a different local agency that intersects with our population, and a lot of good discussions happen in the context of a reentry task force. And I think the whole idea of having participants participate in your reentry task force is also something that's been very both powerful and helpful to our reentry task force. So that's what I have to offer today. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Tom. Very good. I attended your most recent Dutchess County bi-monthly meeting, and I agree that it was an excellent meeting. There was a great testimonial, and I think you got a lot of great feedback from your community partners as well. So thank you. Next on the docket for today is Kim Saunders. She is the Mental Health Program Coordinator from the Broome County Mental Health Department. Kim?
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you, Michelle and Melinda and Taylor, for inviting me today. The Broome County has been fortunate to have a county reentry task force beginning in 2008, and I took over the role of county co-chair in May of 2018. So I'm only the second county co-chair in the existence of the program, which I think speaks a lot for the consistency of the voice and the role of the county co-chairs, that it stays very consistent over a protracted period of time. And also that your relationships that allow the cross-system collaboration have to be cultivated before somebody's the co-chair. That they're going to need to leverage those relationships. So the county co-chair has that 30,000-foot view. They can participate in things that are cross-system. So I'm also on the Criminal Justice Advisory Board. I'm involved with Drug Treatment Corps. I have assisted outpatient treatment. We have a decent amount of services in a town our size. And sometimes individuals wear multiple hats. So it's good to have the relationship so that when you have to lean in and say, hey, we're having a little bit of trouble here, then you've already got that going. Melinda was mentioning on slide number 8 that individuals have to come through a doc's referral, but sometimes, and in fact, it happens more often than not, that individuals actually hit the street here, and then we have to kind of reround them back to reentry task force processes. And if we didn't have a good, strong committee, folks wouldn't be aware of it. They wouldn't know you could round them back. They might have thought the door was closed. And because we have such strong involvement with our community partners that have integral points of interception with these folks to have a successful discharge. So it's through those existing relationships that we kind of round back, and somebody show up at a food pantry, they round them back to CRTF, and then we just climb back in and get the referral done that way. The other thing they mentioned was the case conference process, which is very active, probably more so on the backside of looking things up and looking for eligibility and finding out where the barriers might be for somebody prior to them stepping off, onto our county. But DSS is an integral piece of that, and we're blessed here in Broome County to have a dual commissioner of mental health and DSS, and that commissioner has committed DSS resources to be tasked to the case conference. So there's always a person from DSS, especially temporary assistance, that can say, oh, we have, a sanction, or we're not going to have a sanction, or hang on, there's no Medicaid here. And then I say, or am I looking for Medicare? There's a lot of things that you can get worked out ahead of time in that case conferencing. So you're reducing any potential barriers that are just low-hanging fruit barriers. Access to transportation to get to your first appointment can't happen if your Medicaid's not turned on. So we're trying to eliminate some of the low-hanging fruit, sort of easy to solve issues. But that doesn't really solve our larger systemic issues. So the county co-chairs, and we speak, candidly at these meetings, but then that information is bubbled up so that larger, more systemic issues can be looked at. Every county is experiencing a housing crunch at this point. I can't tell you the amount of individuals who are discharged to the mailing address of the DSS building. And we know that that's not setting them up for the best success, but does mental health, does DSS, or does a community agency on their own have everything their needs, to do to stand up a temporary housing situation for the best opportunity for success? They don't. You have to work in these relationships, and you have to think a little more forward, knowing that the individual in front of you might be, seeing Kim for mental health things, but Kim's also the access point for OASIS things, and she also has a SPOA coordinator that might have housing things, and so lots of spokes around the hub there. But probably the most important piece is that it lends weight, credibility, and longevity to the purposeful nature of the County Reentry Task Force, and consistency in that messaging is what can transfer, because we're lucky to have had 2 county co-chairs, but there's been a lot of turnover in a lot of other organizations and a lot of other roles. So the more consistent that the representation is here from the leadership and the co-chairs in your community, the more that somebody's going to say, well, I don't know what that's about, but my previous person went, so I guess I'll go. Yes, keep following. But they are going to need that leadership as well.
Thank you so much, Kim. And both of you, Mr. Angel, Kim, you both are long-standing members of your county reentry task forces within your local communities, and you're absolutely right. The consistency does lend itself to a higher quality program, and the people within your communities look up to you as leaders within your communities, as authorities within your communities in the criminal justice field. So thank you so much for being a part of the county reentry task forces and for all of your support over the years. We hope to see you continue. Thank you. So now we're switching over to docs, and we have 2 very, very good co-chairs here to say a few words about their experiences working with the task forces. Long-time reentry manager who's been working with the task forces long before I have. I'll start with Ms. Detrell Howell, a docs reentry manager from the Bronx. Detrell?
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all can hear me. I am happy to have an opportunity to share my experience of being a co-chair with the task force with you all. I have been with the Bronx Task Force since the planning stages, so I've been a part from the very beginning. I have a great working relationship with my task force co-chairs, who are the Bronx DA and the Fortune Society. We work as a cohesive team. Upon receiving the consent forms from the facilities, I cross-check the compass levels, particularly the level 4s. I check our system to determine whether that individual has a qualifying criminal conviction or a medical need. I participate in the case conferences, and I coordinate with the parole officers to forward the completed packages to all of those who will attend the case conferences. And with regard to our bi-monthly meetings, we, the co-chairs, coordinate to make the meeting as applicable as possible to the needs of the population. And it's been a great run thus far. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Detrell. I've worked with you from the moment I started as a manager in the Vocation, Education, Employment, and Reentry Unit when I first started working with the task forces, and you really have been very helpful in helping me to learn the ropes. So thank you again for your diligence and your support and your hard work in the Bronx. And you're welcome. And the next and last docs co-chair that we're going to hear from today is Ms. Brianna D'Angelo. She is from the Western region. She is a reentry manager. She's covering Monroe, Erie, and the Niagara CRTFs. Brianna?
Thank you, Michelle. Good afternoon, everyone. I do, like Michelle said, cover Monroe, Erie, and Niagara, and I've had the pleasure of being a part of the process, not as long as our other presenters, but probably about the last 4 years or so, 1 year though as the co-chair. Each of our task forces are unique, of course, in their own way, and I just find that our relationships are most beneficial when we have the other co-chairs and the coordinators take the time to engage regularly, have purposeful and functional discussions on each system within their own agency to like you said, identify barriers and come up with different ways to make things successful. I'd like to share just a quick story, if I may, about Niagara County. We recently brought on a new coordinator who was working with an individual and was called that an individual on site had potentially had a firearm. And this coordinator took the time to speak with community supervision. And while she was unaware of who that individual was, she was provided a description and was able to identify the individual and sat down and spoke with the individual who had an SMI and appeared very symptomatic at that time. And she sat with him, she knew him, she had a good working relationship with him and was able to keep him there while community supervision and the police department were called, until they arrived on site when the individual was found to be in possession of a loaded firearm. So while this doesn't speak to resources directly, it certainly speaks to great working relationships that our coordinators have with those that they're serving, and the great relationship that they have with community supervision. And in this instance, of course, I think it's important to recognize that lives could have been saved or injuries prevented. So thankful to Niagara County Reentry Task Force in that circumstance.
Wow. Thank you, Brianna. That was really great. Thank you for sharing that with us. We are very, very proud of the task forces, all of them, particularly Niagara as well. I'm very, very happy to work with John Cicchetti in Niagara as well, who I know is on the call today. But yes, thank you for your hard work, Brianna. We know that you do a great job at ensuring that when there are any issues anywhere within your area, within your region, you do take, the lead, and you do try to make sure that, referrals are coming in, and you try to make sure that you insert yourself into the process whenever you can to make things better. So thank you so much, both to you and to Trell and the county co-chairs, Mr. Angel and Kim Saunders. Thank you so much. And now I'm turning it back over to Melinda Vick.
You got it. Thank you so much, Michelle, and thank you for moderating that. We really appreciate it. So at this time, we would like to open the discussion up for any questions or comments. Anything that we missed in the chat, let us know. You can come off mute and feel free to either raise your hand, come off mute, or throw it in the chat. We are open. We have about 8 minutes left to answer any questions you have.
I did notice that there was, oh, I'm sorry, Taylor.
No, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that I wanted to say, and I just noticed this, that Taylor did write that she will send out the guidance document with a copy of these slides after the presentation. I just wanted to make sure that we mentioned that.
I was going to repeat myself, that we're all on the same wavelength. And this is recorded, so we will be able to share this as well.
Yeah, and you also put the answer to the maximum expiration consent question in the chat as well, just in case it got lost in the flow.
Yes, thank you. What I'll do is I'll copy it and paste it one more time so it's at the bottom of everyone's chat, just in case. It's a great question. And case file documentation, if there's ever any question about what's required or what's needed, just don't hesitate to reach out to Melinda or myself.
I see so many co-chairs from the counties and from docs in this participant list today. And I just want to say one more time, thank you for being here and showing this level of commitment to your counties, to your regions. Thank you for the support you give to the county reentry task forces. You've probably heard in the past month or so that we are hopefully going to get a lot more funding for the county reentry task forces. Cross your fingers. I see Kim doing the happy dance. Hopefully when budget time comes around, we will be happy and there will be support, given for us to have that increase. And then we will be doing some work to make sure that, the needs of the task forces are met the best that we can. I don't want to keep talking in case there are more questions, but I don't see any coming in to the chat and I don't see any hands raised. So
Michelle, there was a really good question here. It says, how is the county co-chair chosen for counties? Because
you
it could
see
be so
a
many
question?
different.
Oh, I just see it. It just came in. Oh, well, it didn't just come in. Yes, it did just come in 1 minute ago. Okay, how is it chosen? I'll take this one, ladies. So what I understand from speaking with my deputy commissioner many times is that there's a conversation that took place, way back when the MOUs were first developed, when the county reentry task forces first started with the county executives. And county executives within each county met with DCJS, and it was determined by the county executive who would be the best fit for this position within their county. A lot of times it is, probation, public defender, DA's office, DSS, mental health. I think there have been talks in the past about a sheriff's department, being a lead in terms of the county co-chair. This is something that does tend to be fluid from time to time, not so much in touches and broom from what we're hearing today, but there are changes that are made from time to time, but the level of decision making in that is from DCJS and the county executive level. If any other co-chairs from the county have any input on that, I'm going to want to speak to that. I'm all ears here, but that is my understanding.
We can also mention the fact that there's a couple of unique circumstances too, and at least 2 out of my 10, there are 2 county co-chairs that work together very hard and very well together, by the way, to also make the County Reentry Task Force happen. And that's unique in those 2 counties, but it works well.
Westchester and Albany, correct?
Correct.
I see Dr. G was on here today. So I don't know if I saw Westchester when I'm going through the participants, but they may be as well. Okay, so we can give people 4 minutes to eat their lunch? I don't know.
Well, I'll take it from here. So thank you all so much for joining us today for the Lunch and Learn webinar series. We hope that you found this information to be valuable and applicable to your everyday work. Please tune in to our next Lunch and Learn webinar in this series, which is scheduled for Wednesday, March 1st, to discuss case plans, a living document. And if you're interested in receiving any additional training, please reach out to your OPCA representative, and we will be more than happy to hook you up if we can. So thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for all of the work that you do on a daily basis and for the individuals that you're working with. Take it from us. We very much appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.